Okay, so here we go. We're starting. So, sourdough for beginners, as I said, is for this class is just going to be about the starter because if you don't have a good starter vibes and it got really rolling and you're on a rhythm, it's really important to have a rhythm with sourdough, and the starter's got to be on a rhythm. It's a very, very important part of. I'm going to actually put my headphones in because then I can move around and you can hear me. So just give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me and my headphones are connected and we're good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so you may want to put speaker view. So make sure your Zoom is not only muted so you don't have open mics, but also speaker view because I'm going to be showing you stuff. And if you're just in the gallery view, you won't be able to see all my visuals. So do that as well. Um, I don't know why mine is not really on speaker view, but I'm assuming you guys all see me big as life. Okay, perfect. Okay. So, okay. So let me just do a little introductory spiel here. Many of you that are on here and have signed up and are watching this are my clients. And as you know, I give everybody kind of a framework, right? And then we work within your lifestyle, your choices, you don't like fish and your husband won't let you do this and you got to go out to dinner every night and you work, you do this. We work within everybody's framework. Sourdough, as it happens, is very similar. There's a framework, which is why everyone's kind of confused because there's a framework, but every single person you know probably makes it differently. And you get really confused online or on social media because everyone's doing something different. You know, there's ratios, there's starters, there's very confusing information. What you need for it, what you don't need. Oh, do you just throw in the cups? Don't worry about that. So I'm going to tell you my tricks. Now, I am not a professional baker. I am by any stretch of the imagination, but I do make great sourdough and I'm very successful and I'm an avid for like 5 or 6 years. So I can certainly, I dove into this very deeply, so I know what I'm doing, but there may be things that I don't know. That's what ChatGPT is for. How do you turn on speaker view? Okay, so go to the top right and it'll say view. You have to kind of move your little cursor around. It'll say view. Okay, so goals for today, and I talk really fast. Oh, questions are going to be at the end, okay? Because I might answer your questions as I'm going along, and I'm going to be looking down at my notes. The goal for today is to get clarity on what sourdough is and what it isn't. A lot of people have misconceptions that it's gluten-free and yada, yada, yada. So we're going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, and we're going to get you started on your starter and get you to be really successful. And got lots of emails and texts that people started a starter and it failed. So that's the best way to make sourdough is to start trial and error and fail because then you can adjust. Because the thing about sourdough that I was talking about with the framework and the moving is there's lots of variables that affect your sourdough.
Teddy's mom.
Hold on. We have an open mic. Sounds like Emily. Open
Zooming
mic.
in the background, so it looks like I attended.
Hold on. Mute. Oh, I'm just gonna mute everybody. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. So, so everyone's kitchen is different. Everyone's oven is different. Everyone's yeast in their kitchen and bacteria that's floating around in their kitchen is different. Temperatures are different. People are in different parts of the world. That all affects sourdough, which is why it's not a recipe. So oftentimes people will say, give me your sourdough recipe. There is a framework, which is the recipe, but it's not like chicken marbella. You can't just follow it and throw things in and have it work. You have to do trial and error. Okay. So let's start talking about just the starter. If you don't have, like I said, an active, great, thriving, bubbly starter, you're never going to get good bread. So a starter can be very resilient, meaning starters can almost look like they're dead and stinky and you can revive them, but easily, and you might not know that, but we'll talk about that. But they need to look and feel and smell a certain way for you to make the best bread possible. Could you make bread if your starter's kind of flat and overdone and a little runny? Yeah, probably, but it's so much work that's not worth your while. So you really want to make sure that before you bake that bread, you know how to recognize the starter that's good, ready, I should say. So, what is a starter? So, now if you've baked bread, you probably have used this little yeast packet at some point in your life. We are making old school starter yeast or making wild yeast. We're catching what they call catching wild yeast or creating your own. Doesn't happen overnight. We don't have back in the day before they had baking soda and baking powder and all this business. They had to catch the yeast from the environment and the flour. There's yeast in the flour and the water that the bacteria in the flour work together to eat the sugars, which create the carbon dioxide, which makes that nice bubbly thing that you may have seen. So that's what we're going to do. That's what makes the dough rise. By the way, that's what gives it its flavor. And you need that. That's the fermentation, as part of the fermentation process is starting that starter. So that's your gold. You need that. Okay. Starter rules of the road. I'm going to dispel a couple of myths here. Before we talk about the tools you need, let me talk about the rules of the road. So there's kind of, for this class, there's 3 different ways, I think 3, that you can have a starter, create a starter. The best way, and I'm going to tell you why, I told some of you, is to take a piece of starter from someone you know that you're friendly with, because that person, that's an avid sourdough maker, and you're going to be able to ask that person questions, and that's going to be your buddy, your sourdough buddy. And also, that is going to be a very rich, robust starter that's already been fed a million times. There's starters that they say are like 1,000 years old. I'm not sure if I believe that, but there's certainly starters that people are boasting online that are 6 years old and 10 years old. Those are going to be the most robust and resilient starters. So that is the absolute best way. And that's absolutely not cheating. You're not cheating if you get someone's starter. That's how this whole thing is. You're handing down starters. It's an ancient tradition. So another way, if you wanted to, it's a lot more work and it takes 7 to 14 days, usually. Sometimes it's super quick. You could just make your own by having equal parts flour and water. Some of you guys tried that, but that takes a lot of trial and error and watching it, and that's a lot of work. If you just borrow somebody's starter, you're just going to feed it the ratios. I'm going to talk about ratios, and you're good to go. Probably the next day to make bread. But I want everybody, even if you borrow one, to feed the starter and get the idea of the trial and error of what that's like. So it's like a pet. It really is like a pet. You have to take care of it. Now, you don't feed it every day. You can, unless you're making bread every day, unless you're a micro bakery, you're not keeping it on the counter like you may have seen on Instagram and just feeding it every day. You could put it in the fridge for a week. I recommend people, if you're going to bake the bread, every week, feed it, and then you need to take it out before you make the bread, but we'll get into that. So it is like a pet though. So if you're gone for 3 weeks, you may have an issue. I can talk to you about how you can revive that. Certainly, there was somebody on here that told me theirs was in there for a long time and it was already getting kind of juicy, and they revived it and it was beautiful. So it's really very resilient. Okay, so borrowing a starter, starting a starter. The third way was, what was the third way? I don't think there was 2 ways: making your own or borrowing one. Those were the 2 different ways. I don't know why I said 3. Okay, so if you did, can I see kind of in the chat, who has 0 starter, they're going to start making their starter or borrow a starter starting from today? Can I see a little chat? Go in the chat and just say, you've got no starter. I just want to get a gauge on where I'm going to kind of direct my most. So nobody has no starter. Okay, no starter. Here we go. Okay, no starter. Okay, we got a lot of them. Okay. Then put in the chat if you borrowed a starter, which is great. And then put in the chat, I guess, at the same time, if you tried to create your own starter. Shared my starter, perfect. Borrowed, great. Faye, okay. Will borrow, yeah, that's what I recommend. Borrowed, okay. You have your own, okay, perfect. Okay, so there are a couple people that are going to make their own. So let me just talk about that for a second, and have kept it going. Perfect, Kimberly, great. Okay, so if you're making your own, let me move my little, now sorry, the lighting is not professional, so there might be some glare. Hopefully you can see this, right? So these are kind of the rules of the road of starter. So if you're making your own, okay, you start off, remember you need a jar. I started making my own. I didn't need to, but I did it for this. I started making my own. You use a jar. I use this one. You could use anything. You do not, you put 50-50. So, oh, can I just tell you, it's grams. We're not doing cups. So you need a kitchen scale. I talked about that in my other video though. You need a kitchen scale and you need to be able to tare, T-A-R-E, so that you can measure things with taking away the size of the jar. Okay. But if you're making your own, you're gonna do 50%, like for this one, I just did 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water, mix it, put a rubber band around the bottom and put it away for 24 hours on a shelf or something, a warm spot. Do not put it next to a artificial warm area. That'll be for later. I'll talk about that. And then you want to label it in some way. Now, I just use these little plastic old lids and you just loosely put it on. You do not want to tighten because you're catching the wild yeast. You never want to tighten. And you label it with a time and a date. So you remember, because believe me, you can forget easily. Okay. So that is how, nothing more, it's not more involved than that. Every day, you're just going to feed it the same amount. You are going to take about 50% of this out and measure. So let's say you scoop some out. Let's say you take 50%, you're going to throw it away. That's called the discard. You're going to throw it away. And then you're going to take a new jar, measure the jar, tare it, and then put in another, you don't have to put that much, 30 grams in. Then you're going to put one, like equal parts. So 30 grams of flour and 30, whatever you decide. If it's 10, do 10. 10 grams of flour, 10 grams of water, leave it for 24 hours. Watch the activity. The expectation is activity happens because the bacteria right away will start to eat the sugars and the fermentation will start to happen. Then you might kind of go dormant for a little while and you may have to increase, like you may have to go to, if you had 10 grams of starter, you may have to go to 20-20. Okay. I'll answer questions about that if you don't understand that. That's making it from scratch. That's the only time you really start with 1:1:1 ratio of starter, flour, and water. That's all you're doing. Starter, flour, and water. And when I say starter, it's the little fermentation that's happening over the next 24 hours. That's your, now you have, that's your starter. That's it. That's what it is. Flour and water. Okay. If you have a starter that you borrowed and that's been alive for a long time, I recommend you do the 1 to, can everyone see this? 1 to 2 to
Your
2.
board
Sherry,
is
I'm sorry to
backwards.
interrupt. Your board looks backwards to me.
Your board is backwards. We don't see it properly.
Oh
Hey, Sherry.
no.
Hey, Sherry.
I wrote it backwards because I thought you guys would be seeing it backwards.
Oh my goodness, we don't see it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can see, okay. I don't want to write it over. Let's see. Does someone have something else to tell me
Sherry,
besides it's backwards?
check the chat because Mark Dauber said how to mirror it.
Okay, hold on.
You could get it.
Hold on.
Go to your video
Your
settings.
board up, yes, it's backwards. Video settings, uncheck the mirror my video. Oh, okay, hold on. Video settings, where's that? Video.
At the bottom of the screen.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Ooh, this is good. And blur my background. Where's mirror?
Mm, There should be
Video
a box.
settings. Hold on.
Yeah, in video settings. There should be a
Ooh.
box that's checked. You
Okay,
want to
hold on.
uncheck it.
Oh, mirror my video. Uncheck it.
Yeah, see if that
Can you
works.
see that now? Is that better? Oh, you can't see it yet. Hold on. Did
It may
that
not
change
work if
it?
it may not work if you wrote it backwards.
I did write it backward. That's why I wrote it backwards. Okay, so we have our first fail here. That's okay. That's what sourdough is. You're going to have a fail. Okay. So let me explain this. You're going to have to read a little bit backwards, but you'll see that you can see that this is 1, 2, 2, right? Yes, you guys can tell that. Okay, so we'll just roll with it. All right. So when you feed, though, if you have a starter that you borrowed from somebody, you're going to feed with a 1 to 2 to 2 ratio, which means if you had, let's just use easy numbers, 10 grams of starter, it's going to be 10, 20, 20. Okay, that's how you feed your starter. That's your kind of normal state, right? That's your normal state is 1 to 2 to 2, not 1 to 1 to 1. 1 to 1. Oh, I'm so upset because I had this all pretty here. 1 to 1 to 1 is what I call CPR. Can you tell that's CPR? CPR is like reviving a starter from it's got hooch on it and it's juicy. You left it for too long, you went out of town, or you forgot about it, or you got lazy, doesn't matter. You just didn't make bread for a long time and you left it in there and you forgot about it. Then you could do a 1 to 1 to 1 and leave it out on your counter for a couple days. While you're doing your original starter, it's out on your counter. You only put it in the refrigerator if you're not going to bake for a while and you're going to feed it once a week. So it's 1 to 2 to 2 once a week. That's your normal, regular, like a baseline. The other like ratios that you see, you don't have to worry about that right now. That's all you're going to do. The other thing I want to emphasize is you're in grams. So you might go on chat, somewhere on TikTok or whatever, or Instagram, and they might say, oh, a cup of this, a half a cup of, do not do that. I'm going to tell you why. Cups is measuring volume. Grams is measuring weight. So you're not going to have flour and water don't have the same situation when it comes to volume and weight. So if you did half a cup and half a cup for a starter, that may have been one of your issues why it kind of eventually died, because so what you could do to revive it is just take a little piece out of that, a 10 grammer, and then start feeding it 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. If you think you had a fail because you were using cups before, you don't have to throw the whole thing out and start over. Just take a little piece off of it because you still have some bacteria in there that is happening. How you'll know if it's kind of not working, if it's like liquidy, if it's too liquidy. You want it to be nice and fluffy. So here's my starter that I took out of the refrigerator, and you can see the bubbles, right? It's not like super bubbly. And I put a rubber band around here because that's where it started. And you can see it grew to 50-50, but this was in my refrigerator for 10 days. So now tonight I'm going to take some out, maybe like 30 grams, and feed it. I always feed 1 to 2 to 2. So I'm going to go 30, 60, 60. And then it'll blossom up, no problem. The one that you start from scratch is not going to look like that right away. It might look like it for a couple days, and then it might look like it's doing nothing. But again, the rubber band and the loose lid and the grams, not cups, is one of the big things that I see people making mistakes with. I feel bad about this being backwards, but okay, so let me just look at my notes and see if everybody is clear on starter. So yeah, so the 1 to 1 to 1, and some people texted me that that's what they do. That's a lot of work because then you're watching your starter. Like that's like you're carrying around your starter with you everywhere you go, because that's going to peak really quickly. So you don't really have to worry about the peaking so much as like you want it to double in size or triple in size, then you know it's nice and bubbly and airy, and then feed it again. Don't feed it too early. Wait till it doubles in size. So it should look at least like this one, at least doubled before you start scooping it out. And the reason you don't just feed it and add to it, because obviously it would just keep growing and you don't want the overflow. There's no reason for that. The overflow, because you'll just be throwing out. Also, do not throw your discard. So you're going to scoop out from the starter and feed it. Don't throw it in the sink. You'll be calling the plumber in a month. So throw most of it away in your garbage or save it. There's discard recipes, but if you're not going to do that, then don't do that. Just throw it away and feed in a new jar. So you'll need a few of these jars, in other words. And then you put soap in there and you clean it out after you've thrown it. Okay, so that is it. That is the starter. It is not any more complicated than that.
Jerry, I have a quick
Questions?
question.
Yes.
Do you just take the discard just straight off the top, or do you want to mix it up and then discard?
Straight off the top is fine. Totally fine. Yeah. This is hilarious, you guys. Backwards. I wrote this all backwards because I was looking at my Zoom. I was like, oh, hilarious. Okay.
Sherry,
Questions? Yes. Unmute and ask your
Question.
questions. Yes.
every day when I feed it, I typically get rid of half and then I do water and flour. Do you measure directly how much you take out? Or do you?
No, you don't
buy
measure
it?
the discard. No, there's no eyeballing, you guys. This is a really important question.
Yeah.
No eyeballing. There's no eyeballing. Bakers measure, like if most sourdough books that you buy, and I recommend you get like a beginner sourdough, we'll always talk in grams for this reason, because you're dealing with two different volumes and weights. Flour and water don't have the same. So you need to have a scale that has a tare so you can measure. So what you do is you put, if you don't, I'll just explain this. Let's say I want 30 grams of something. I'm going to put this on, but this weighs, we can't, how are you going to do that? So you click tare and it goes to 0, right? It'll then go to 0. And then whatever, well, it was 8 because my finger was on there, but it'll go to 0. And then you can scoop out from here, pour out or scoop out, and you measure 30 grams in there, and then you throw the rest away. You don't, is that your question?
Well, okay. So my question is your discard. So before you discard, you every day take 30 grams out and then 60 and 60.
Yeah. I don't do that every day because I keep mine in the fridge, but yes,
But
you
when
could
you're
take 10
feeding-
out. You could, let's just deal in 10 because it's a smaller amount.
Mhm.
Because you won't waste a lot of flour that way. Because if you do the 30, it's a lot. If you're going to bake, you want to do 30. If you're just feeding it, just to kind of get it going, you could do 10. So you'll take a little 10 out. You don't need a lot. And then you'll feed it 20 grams of flour and 20 grams of water. The discard is not measured or weighed or anything. You just throw that away. Because then
Okay.
you've got your new starter. You don't need another starter.
Okay.
That's just, and there's no take half out. When you're making the brand new starter, you could do like a half and half situation for the very first time. But after that, because it's growing and growing and growing. So you want to just
'Cause
scoop out
I've
a little
always
piece.
eyeballed my starter.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that because when you get more into more elaborate, if you get into more like seeded and you have to have the right hydration, it's a big chemistry project.
Got it.
In the beginning, it's okay. You could probably get away with that,
Mhm.
but you don't just want to do, you could throw away half of the starter, but you still have to measure what you have so you know how to do the ratios.
Got it. That's
You can
perfect.
add the appropriate ratios. Yeah, I hope that
Thank
answers.
you.
Okay. Kimberly. Kimberly, unmute
Yeah.
yourself.
Thanks. I think I'm piggybacking off of what Jennifer was saying because that's the situation I find. So I'm just trying to explain it. I've had a
Okay.
starter for a year. I do the same thing. I keep it in the fridge, when I take that jar out, a lot of books and people have said you dump half out and then you put it back on the scale and just add
Okay,
whatever.
that is for convenience, and that's
Okay.
fine. You still have to measure. Now, some people have the same exact jar and they know how much the jar weighs, so they can minus that from the total.
Right. That's kind of
That's
what I did.
kitchen math. Okay, that's
Right.
fine. To me,
But
that's harder. You could do it that way too.
no,
But
but I
I
think,
wouldn't
yeah.
like make it, to me, it's easier, especially if you don't want to waste a lot of flour, because
Yes.
you're going to see after a time, you're going to be like, I went through an entire bag of flour, never made a loaf of bread, just feeding my damn starter. So you only need a little bit of a 10 gram, and then you
Right.
do 20/20, and that's enough. Unless you're baking bread, then you could even do like a 1:5:5 ratio if you wanted to.
Right. I guess that's what I'm saying. So then if I pull it out, it's with the desire to make bread. So I thought it was scoop out, dump half, make like just say enough starter so but I use what I use for the bread and then I feed it again a little bit and put it back in the fridge for the following week. But I'm just like
Yeah.
you said, blowing through and I don't there's a lot of discard. I have like way
Yeah,
too
you
much
don't
discard.
exactly. So I would be a little bit more, you could practice with the starter, keeping it at a certain level. That's why I want people to practice with their starter to also reduce the
Okay.
amount of flour you're wasting. The other thing is about the fridge. Let me just remind people about the fridge thing. You can feed it once it's going. I'm not talking to the people who are making brand new starters right now. I'm talking to people who borrowed starters or took starters because you're not giving it back. When you put it in the fridge, it's really important to let it rise at least like this much, like double it before you put it in the fridge for the week. And also, because you want to make sure it works. And also, when you take it out of the fridge, let it sit out for several hours and let it bubble up again before you go ahead and feed it. You want to make sure it's active. It'll make it more robust and flavorful, and it'll just be a lot better if you do it that way. So just make sure that you kind of defrost it, decool it. Does that make sense? I don't know if you do that or not, Kimberly, typically.
I do, but
Okay.
that's basically my issue. I think my starter isn't very flavorful and my bread is nice, but I don't see a lot of holes. So maybe
Oh
that
yeah.
would be why.
Yeah. So this is perfect. So it could be the starter. So I would say allow the starter to give it, like, for now, I would say take your starter out of the fridge, start feeding it every day for the week if you can. You could even put in, if you can't feed it for 2 days, like you're going somewhere for the weekend, put it in the fridge for 2 days, but just make sure you kind of defrost it and make sure it bubbles up, and get a little bit more exact with your measuring. So Kimberly, that's a perfect thing. Her bread is flat. So we want to fix the starter and make sure the starter is really what it's supposed to be doing with the right measuring. I find it easier to scoop out a piece. People on Instagram are telling you all kinds of things. It's easy, it's this, it's that, just throw half away, blah, blah. Personally, I don't think that is a good, because it's a lot of work from soup to nuts to do this. And for your bread to come out flat is really kind of deflating. So what I'd like to do is everybody fix their starter, take your starter out of the fridge, start feeding it, start just scooping out 10 grams, feed it 20 grams of flour and 20 grams of water. Do it that way. That way you won't be wasting a lot of flour, and get that start. You'll know because your starter's going to like triple in 4 hours. Then you're like, okay, now we're cooking with gas. Then you can feed it and put it in the fridge and keep it there for a week or a couple days. Take it out, defrost it, feed it again. You kind of want to play around with it. The more you feed it, the more bacteria it's going to catch, the more yeast in the air, all of that stuff. And the more you do it, like for people who ferment, there's somebody on here that ferments like pickles and onions and stuff. Her kitchen is really going to be like, it's going to get going because she's got already fermentation going on in her kitchen. Or if you already make sourdough, you're in a kitchen that makes that, you can really get a good starter going because you're catching the yeast and the bacteria from your kitchen. I hope that was helpful for everybody.
I was told, Sherry, I was
Yeah.
told to to feed my starter because I keep it in the fridge 1 to 1 to 1 every week.
No, big mistake. I'm telling you, 1 to 1 to 1 is CPR. That is for revival. That is not lifestyle. So what that's doing is your starter is probably peaking and then falling and then hungry before you feed it again. And then you're not really ever getting it going. I don't recommend that. I know
Also,
people are saying that on the internet world and in the world. I don't recommend that. I really don't. Because you won't
okay,
see the action. So the 2 to 2 will allow you more food. You're feeding something. So it'll allow you more food. It'll allow you to catch your starter when it's domed at the top. So you want it to be domed at the top and then it could fall a little bit. You really have to start examining it now. This is only about starter. That's why I can't just do a class on sourdough because the starter has to be, so you have to watch for that dome, watch for the bubbles to be at the top, like, like it's like I don't know, like it's got bubbly top and then it'll fall slightly. It'll just kind of fall slightly and flatten. You could even take a marker when you think it's domed and see if it'll go a little bit more. And then that's when you feed it, when it's right after that dome or when it's domed. You want to feed it then. If you feed it too early or too late, there is sort of a finesse to the whole thing.
okay,
Yeah, I
and then
wouldn't do 1 to 1 to 1 ever. I mean, unless you're, for certain circumstances, if you have a hoochie, and you're going to be able to feed it every 4 hours, because your 1 to 1 to 1, if you're just getting 10 grams in there, that's gonna rot. That's gonna peak in maybe 2 to 3 hours, and then by the time you go look at it, because if you're doing it once a day, then it's way past its prime, and you're never kind of getting the engine going. You're never like activating it. It's kind of hungry and thirsty and dead.
right, but I make 11 when I make my starter, and I also make that 1 to 1 to 1.
11. That is the 11. That's the 11. What do you mean?
I go to the refrigerator, I take off like 50 grams, and I take off 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water, right? And then I leave that on my counter for like 8 hours, and I bake that. I put
Well,
that in
that's
my
1 to 2 to 2. That's not 1 to 1 to 1.
right, right. So
Yeah.
that's what I bake with. But then I
Oh.
keep in my refrigerator like
Mm-mm. I
no,
wouldn't. I mean, does that work for you? Do you make big round holy bread with the proper? I mean, if it works for you, fine.
I
But
mean it.
normally for novices, I do not tell people to do that.
So what should I should you think I should feed it the one in that I keep in the fridge, I should also feed 1 to 2 to 2?
Yeah, if you have an active starter and you're not just making a fresh one from scratch,
No,
yes.
I have an active starter.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
1 to 2 to 2. But I'm saying don't feed it 50, 100, 100 if you're not baking. If you're just
No,
putting it in the refrigerator, you could do
right,
10, 10, 20,
right,
20.
right.
Yeah.
And then the 11 I could do 50, 100,
Oh,
100.
you mean the Levain? Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
talking about that. Yeah, no, don't even confuse people with that right now. That's when you bake your bread. That, by the
Right.
way, it's interchangeable. She's talking about when you actually make your bread, you want the starter, you need 150 grams sometimes. So you can't just do the 10, 20, 20 like I was talking about.
Right.
For right now, we just want to get people their starters juiced up and nice and flavorful and fed and properly
Okay.
created.
So
Sherry,
Questions?
I'm
that's
sorry,
what
Reva, are you done?
yeah, just gonna keep it. I'm gonna try 1 to 2 to 2. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Lynn,
Sherry,
did you have a
this is
question?
Len. Um, can you just go back? I have no starter and zero experience in this. So we're going
Okay.
to start with one equal amounts water and equal amounts flour.
Yeah,
We're going
and
to
you
leave
choose
that
your
on the,
amount. I would do so I did this one, 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. I
okay,
started this from scratch.
and you put the rubber band and you put a little plastic thing on top and you leave
Yeah,
it on the counter.
or if you have this lid from the You could just, but don't seal it. So you're just going to put it in there. And then you let this sit for 24 hours on your counter or like kind of in the warmest spot of your kitchen
Okay.
for 24 hours. See what's going on there. If nothing happened, that's why the rubber bands, if nothing happened, leave it another 8 hours if you can. If it's overnight or if it's like the end of the day before you go to bed, just check it. If it's grown at all, you're going to feed it again. You're going to scoop out what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to take this. I'm going to scoop out 10 grams
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to put it in another mason jar and then add 20. Then I'm going to go to my 1 to 2 to 2.
Gotcha.
The only
Okay.
time you're doing 1 to 1 is
Is
that
the
very first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long are you going to let the second one set the second day?
Again, minimum of 24 hours. So you wait 24 hours, see what's going on there. So can, Laura, can you
Is it actually
unmute?
doubling?
No, it's not. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know. So you got to watch for the active. That's why there's not like a recipe. Perfect.
Gotcha.
So Laura Kaplan, you
Yeah,
started so what was the timeline of your brand new starter? Tell us about that because that was a good little trial and error thing.
The one that I killed?
Yeah, but I don't think it's dead. I thought Alan was going to try to
Alan's
revive it.
reviving it.
No, I'm making a new one. I
Okay.
started all over.
Started over from scratch?
I started
Okay.
over 4 days ago.
Okay, because I heard about an oven and a light.
Yeah, I left the light on the oven and it got really hot.
Right.
Kind of liked it.
So if you do the oven light, you guys are going to go now, your Instagram and your whatevers are going to start popping up ideas. If you do that, that's fine, but you only want to do it for an hour and you don't turn the oven on, just the light on. And no, that's only
just
for
the
1
light.
hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did it overnight and
I
it
left
turned
it
out.
on.
And you probably
Yeah.
didn't kill it. I would say you could just keep peeling off a little piece, but if you just threw it away, it's fine.
But
Yeah. So what happened with Laura's is I think, what's that one?
this is the one that I borrowed. And I
Okay.
fed it yesterday. I haven't fed it yet today because it hasn't risen at all, but it's a bit liquidy, but it's very bubbly and a little foamy at the top.
Okay. Did you feed it the first time she gave it to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you cover it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I covered it loosely so that air could get in.
And how long ago was that?
Yesterday.
What was that? Tuesday?
Oh, it's been 24 hours.
When was it? Steph? Jen?
Was
Was
it
it-
24 hours? Was it a day? That?
Was it?
It was yes.
Okay. So that guy is hungry. So you need
Yeah,
to
he's
feed
hungry.
that tonight.
No, it was Monday.
You haven't
Oh,
fed it since
Monday. Then I
Monday?
fed her.
Yeah.
I fed her yesterday around 5 o'clock.
So normally with a 1 to 2 to 2 ratio, you feed like every 12 hours. So if you wanted to do a 1 to 3 to 3, you could wait 24 hours. The bigger the ratios, the longer you can wait. But in the beginning to get it going, I would do 1 to 2 to 2. That's your base.
Every
So I would
12
feed it now. You never want to, if it's in it, it's dead. It's hungry. It's probably
I
hungry.
thought it was only 24 hours. I didn't know every 12 hours. Okay.
Well, it depends. I would look at it at 12 and see what's going on. If it's doubled, then you have to feed it. And then the next time, if you don't want to feed it, if it keeps doubling and tripling, you're done. You're good. You could put it in the fridge.
So because it hasn't risen.
It hasn't risen. It's hungry for
she's
sure.
hungry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would feed it tonight and then
Okay.
check it in feed it 1 to 2 to 2 to peel off a little 15 gram, whatever you want to do, 10 gram and
Okay.
feed it tonight
Okay.
and see what happens in the morning.
And if it's still flat,
It won't, I don't think it'll be. You got it from Jennifer?
yeah.
It won't be.
So
It
if
might-
it rises again, the first day overflowed.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. You got to be on like a schedule. You got to check it. You got to check it every 24 hours. I mean, 12 hours. You don't necessarily have to feed it. After a 1 to 2 to 2 ratio, you're going to be feeding it every 12 hours. That's
Okay.
why people do 1 3 3 or they put it in the fridge. But I want you guys to kind of get it going. So I need you to look at it every 12 hours.
When
Look
can
at
we-
it at least.
When can we bake, Sherry? When do we know it's ready for baking?
When you know it consistently is doubling and tripling after when you're doing the 1 to 2 to 2, and it's consistently 3 or 4 days in a row, doubling or tripling and getting nice and bubbly and domed at the top, you'll know. That's why you have to do this so that you can recognize it yourself,
Okay.
like how it goes. So then after a couple days, when it's, you guys can send me pictures in an email, and then you can throw it in the fridge for a week and then only feed it once a week, but you're still going to do the 1 to 2 to 2. I think there's questions in the chat.
Okay.
When you put it in the fridge, do you cover it? Yes, but again, loose, because there's lots of good, I'm sure in your refrigerator, there's lots of good
Wait,
bacteria and
It's not tight in the fridge because I took the
No.
disc and I put it in case I killed it again.
Oh,
Super tight.
You never tight. Because you're tight, you want the bacteria from the air. You're catching wild yeast. You want to catch the yeast. There's yeast everywhere, you guys. Yeast and bacteria is on everything and everywhere, especially in your refrigerator. This is a good
Sherry,
place. Yeah.
Can I show you my top? Or
Yeah.
my,
Yeah, but we can't see you, I don't think.
can you see me?
No.
You can't
Your
see.
camera's not on.
I thought it was on. Jen said it was on.
No. Well,
Hold on.
we
David
can't
just
see
got
you.
home. Maybe he can turn it on. Dave, can you turn on my camera for me? Hold on. Okay, well, I have this Welk jar. And
Yeah.
I have just the top on without the
You
orange.
don't
lip.
seal it. Do not
No, I
seal
didn't.
it.
No, it's not sealed. It's just laying on top.
Yeah, just lay it on top.
Okay, but
So if
then
you
when do
ha-
I
Mute me.
say hi? Okay, how do
Hey,
you?
Alan and Laura.
Oh,
We
sorry.
can't see you, I don't think.
They can't see me.
Steph,
No.
I have the same jars that Stephanie got because she told me what to order.
Yeah.
First night, well, I didn't have them the first night. So Jen just put a little cheesecloth on top and said, just loosely put a thing on. And that's when it overflowed. And it was so amazing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
last night,
No
I used the
tightening.
Welch jar and I put this on, but not with the rubber, and it didn't rise. So I think maybe it needs more air than this.
Yeah, okay, perfect. You could put a kitchen towel on it. You could put a little
Okay.
whatever. You could put a paper towel and put the rubber band around it. You could put like a little rag thing as long as it's clean.
Okay.
You don't want it tight. If you feel like the Weck jar is too tight, then
I-
don't use that. Then don't use that. That's why I just have these plastic lids and I just lay it on top. And also what's good about the plastic lids is make sure you guys are labeling the time and the date that you feed, because trust me, you won't remember. Yeah, so Laura, you guys are now consistently checking and feeding every 12 hours. I would just keep it simple.
Okay. Well, from now, it's been 24 hours, but I will do 12 hours from
Feed
now.
tonight. Yeah, feed tonight, 1 to 2 to 2.
Okay.
Questions? Any other questions? No? Really? Okay.
Not to be annoying, but I do have a question.
Oh,
So,
yeah. No, I
all
want
the stuff
questions.
on Instagram is saying how rye is so good to add to it. When do you add the rye? From the beginning?
Anytime you want. Anytime you want. So this is why, I didn't discuss the gluten-free situation. Sourdough is not gluten-free. You need the gluten in there to have the structure and have if you've made it before, you know that when you're building it and when you're folding and doing all your business, you're building the gluten structure. The fermentation breaks down that gluten. That's why it's easier to digest, because it's kind of pre-digested. It's already kind of chopped up. So that's why it's easy, but it's not gluten-free. So rye and you want to use, if you're still having a fail, I would go get a high protein, high quality, not Costco, flour. Like King Arthur's fine, or like people that know Ballerina Farm have a really good high protein flour. Rye is great. If you're having trouble getting it going, any whole wheat is good. Not Icorn, low gluten, none of that business, because that you need the gluten for the fermentation to happen, and you need to build the gluten structure.
So do you do like half regular bread flour and half
experiment?
rye?
Yeah, experiment.
Okay.
50,
Yeah. You could
Okay.
do 50-50. Rye is great. I wouldn't do all rye. It definitely is going to look different. I would add in a little bit at a time. It'll help it kind of grow. Kind of fertilizer for the starter. It'll be brown. You don't want to do all rye because have a very strong flavor and a smell. I don't think you'll like it. You could experiment with that later, but the rye, do you use bread flour or all purpose? Not all purpose. I would use bread or some other high quality, high protein, flour. Yeah, not really all purpose. It'll work, but it might grow faster than you think. It just won't be as flavorful. Okay. Any more questions? Questions are not annoying. Questions are helping everybody kind of figure it out. So does everybody understand that this is kind of a trial and error situation where you really have to kind of do it and try it and fail and build it up again? Now, any starter that's bubbled before is not a fail. Don't throw anything out. It might kind of lag and you just have to keep at it. And just also, if your kitchen's really cold, if your kitchen's under 70 degrees, because you're not really cooking or whatever, that's the temperature you keep, it's going to take longer. So, when you say place in a warm spot, what is considered too cold? Under 70 degrees is going to be not great. So like in like a corner or like by the oven, but you don't want direct heat on it. I'm not going to tell people to do the oven in the light thing because that has failed a lot. Someone told me that they left their husband turned the oven on and then they baked the thing and it wasn't good. Okay, let me talk about next class if nobody has any more questions. Next class is going to be 3 weeks from today because I want to give everybody a chance to kind of build their starter and also give it some fridge time, like experiment with putting it in the fridge and then letting it warm up and letting it grow and then feeding it. I want you to experiment with all that. Hopefully somebody's will overflow also. That's a good learning environment. So we do need 3 weeks for that, especially because there's people that are building it from scratch. Building it from scratch is like odds are 50-50 that you're going to have in 3 weeks. It's not as easy as it seems. I just remembered the third option. Great third option, which is to order. People sell dried starter that you can just add water to. Those are fantastic. I put a link, I think, for Ballerina Farm. Ballerina, like the dancer. They have a great organic whatever starter. You can order that and you'll get it in plenty of time to do your starter. Sorry, that was the third option, was the ordering it if you don't have a friend. But I highly recommend you find a friend who makes sourdough because it's a good way to kind of ask questions and do it together. Next class, February 25th, same time, Wednesday. Yes, not tap water. No, sorry, I thought that went without saying. No tap water. Tap water is going to have chlorine in it. Laura, were you using tap water from the sink?
No,
Purified.
all my water's purified.
Okay.
From this water system.
Okay. Not distilled. I wouldn't use distilled
no.
water, but just
But if we
clean
have-
water.
Yeah, clean water.
We have
Yeah.
the home all water system.
fine.
That should be
Yes.
fine.
Yeah. Just anything that's filtered because it filters out the chlorine and the fluoride and whatever, because the chlorine will make it harder. Just want to make that clear because someone did ask that question. Yeah. You want to use good water. So here's the thing about the bread. So next class, we're going to talk about the bread making and recognizing when your sourdough is, or your starter is ready to bake. You do need some specific tools for that. So I do want to go over that. You must have, I can't emphasize enough, a scale. You might want, this is what I do, is I keep a notebook. You could even do this for your starter and you write everything down. You're going to want to write everything down like a real baker because there's a lot of different steps while you're baking the bread. And you're going to want to know what you did right and what you think you did wrong. And you trust me, you won't remember. So you're going to want a little notebook where you can just write down, this is mine. It's sourdough shenanigans. and I just write it all down. That way I know if I came up with something really good. The other thing that you're going to need, there's a few things that you're going to need. If you just go on some sourdough site and order a kit, you'll probably have everything you need. You're going to want one of these. I have no idea what it's called. It's like it's a knife and you cut and you scrape and it's a scraper. I don't know.
It's called a bench
Bench
scraper.
press.
Yeah, there you
Bench
go. There you
scraper.
go. You're gonna want some type of razor situation. I think it's called a lamb. What's it called, Jen?
Lame.
Something. And then mine has a little pocket thing. There's fancy ones that have
Handles.
handles. You can buy that if you want to. It's fine. You need to have baskets like this. You could use baskets that you have in your house, but you're going to have to use you're going to need like a insert, some type of insert. So I would recommend getting something like this. What's this called, Jen? Benetton. Banneton. Thank you. See, I'm not a baker, but I know what I'm doing.
And
You're going to want,
you can use a towel in them or you can get a liner for
I
them.
wouldn't use a towel. Actually, I wouldn't do that. I would get I would have one. I would get a proper one with a liner. I've used a towel before. It's not great. You have to flour the towel. This you have to flour too, but I wouldn't do that. I would get a proper Benetton. You need 2 bowls. One is like going to be where where your dough is going to live while it's fermenting. Rising, proofing. We'll talk about that. I like to use one for the last fermentation that is glass because it's going to want to like grow 30 to 50% and it would be hard to see in this. It can be done, not that critical, but if you have a glass bowl for that, that would be better. Okay. Can't bake your bread without something specific to make it in. It's not challah. You're not just putting it in the oven. If you have you don't have to go out and buy, well, you might. If you don't have this, Le Creuset. Now, there's other ways to do it. You're going to see on Instagram, just put it in and put a thing of water in the thing for the moisture. That's fine if you want to try to. I'm not teaching it that way. I'm teaching because this thing you use forever.
Dutch oven.
A Dutch oven. Yeah, I do know that. You could buy if you're buying things, they have specific sourdough. What are they called? They're called something.
Cloche.
It might even be called a Dutch oven. You can buy that people love them. Alan, what's her name? Susan Roth loves her thing, whatever she has. She says can't live without it. But if you already have this situation, the Le Creuset Dutch oven, then it works perfectly fine. It just needs to be closed. You're not baking. I know you'll see on Instagram, they just put it in the oven. Don't do that. That's for like people that professional know what they're doing and they know about temperature. We're not taking any thermometers either. We're not like, you're going to see that too. You don't need to do that. You can, but you don't need to like take the temperature of the dough. I don't do that. Mine is fine. That's it. Is that it for the supplies? Yeah, you need a lot of flour. I would go get a lot of flour because you're going to need a lot of flour. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
How much starter do you typically use in your basic recipe when you're baking?
My recipe calls for 150 grams of starter.
Okay.
So
and doing 10, 20, and 20 creates.
No. But this is 10, 20, 20 is just for the starter situation. When we get to the bread, we'll talk about increasing those for the bread. But just so people are not wasting a lot of flour while they're working on their starter and not getting annoyed, we stick to the 10, 20, 20. But once we make the bread day where you're making the bread, like I think it was Kimberly mentioning the levain, that your actual starter, another word for it is levain. You're going to see that too, Levain. I think it's a French word. That is going to be more because you're going to need 150 grams of starter. So we'll get to that. But for now, just so people don't waste a lot of flour, just do 10, 20, 20. Keep it really simple. Does that clear up how much starter do you want us to have in 3 weeks? Your starter's not gonna grow. I know you see it on Instagram, like poof, what? Your starter's not gonna go because you're discarding. Every time you feed your starter, the way you feed it is you scoop out or you pour out 10, 20. You could do 20 if you want, play around with it. I just wouldn't do like 50, 100, 100. I think it was Riva or somebody else was saying that, like, I wouldn't do that much because you're gonna be throwing it out. We're just doing starter right now. So I wouldn't do that. I would just keep it small. So does that answer your question? So in 3 weeks, you're still gonna have the same amount because you're discarding the rest. You're scooping out your 10, feeding it 20, 20, and everything else is going in the trash. So you're never gonna have more than whatever's in that. And everyone's going to be different. It's not an exact science when it comes to the starter because some people's starters are brand new. Some people's were borrowed. Some people have more active yeast in their kitchen. It's just going to depend. It's not going to be that much. It's going to be 10, 20, 20. You're not going to have much more than this, if that, right? Anything else? Questions? I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have more questions, if things come up, email. You guys have my email.
Sherry?
Yeah.
Hey, first off, thank you.
Yeah.
This is interesting
Fun,
and
right?
fun.
Really fun. Yeah.
I tried it a year ago and never got to the bread stage, but the discard and making crackers with the discard was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, you could. Okay, so if you want to, while you're throwing away all this discard, you could collect your discard. It's a great question. Collect your discard. If you're like Jonesy to do something with sourdough, easiest thing to do is the crackers. So you're just going to, instead of throwing your discard away, collect it in a mason jar. And then all you do is flatten it out on a cookie sheet, add whatever you want to it, rosemary, whatever flavor crackers you want, salt, a lot of salt, and bake it. And you could look it up on the internet, what the recipes are. There's a ton. You can make muffins.
Yeah, where do you store the discard?
In the refrigerator. In the refrigerator. That is going to go crazy if you leave it out. Discard you have to store in the refrigerator. But you could leave it in there for several days before you use it. You don't have to use it right then and there. You could collect it for a while. If it gets juicy at the top, I wouldn't. I don't know. That's okay for the starter, but the discard, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I've never done that. Any other questions? I am going to want to know who's coming on the 25th. So I'm going to probably ask for RSVPs in some fashion. It might be email, it might be registration. I'm not really sure how we'll do that. Might send out just to the people that signed up for this. I'll send out maybe some kind of, it might even be just a Google Doc that says, yes, I'm coming, just so I know who to expect. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it.
Thank you, Sherry.
Sure. I hope it was helpful.
Amazing.
Sorry, we got a little janky here, but it's okay.
I'm impressed that you wrote it backwards.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Okay, see you soon.
Bye.